Let's just start again. The second time, welcome you to Behind the United Art Gallery. Today's guest is Nayana LaFond from Massachusetts. Thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well today.
So yesterday we figured out that you're somehow connected to our previous guest, Shane Barkovich. How does this come?
Well, I haven't met him personally. However, we have a lot of things in common, it seems. One of his recent projects, I'm of Native American descent. My mother is actually Anishinaabe from Ontario. And so when I looked into his work, I noticed the work that he'd done with a lot of other Native people, especially modern Native work, which is something that I always wanted to do growing up, was to be a photographer and photograph modern Native society in its actual honest form. And so to see him kind of doing that was really amazing. And I started life actually in art as a photographer. I've always been a painter, but I originally went to school for photography and specifically for old process, alternative process, large format photography. And so that was quite a coincidence. And then I learned an even bigger coincidence, which that he works in oncology. And I've been an oncology patient for about 8.5, almost 9 years now. So I have a great appreciation for oncology nurses. So we seem to have quite a bit in common, actually.
Yeah, that's when we wrote about it, it was really surprised. But I think, how could it be a better start that you guys are so connected?
Exactly.
Pretty cool. So the next question is, how has the pandemic affected you? How is your life right now?
It's significantly affected me in many ways, but also in other ways, it's actually a lot of normalcy. How it's normal is that as I've been an oncology patient for 8.5 years, this lifestyle that we have all had to adopt is actually kind of normal for me. I've had to social distance, wear masks in public. I've been doing all of these things for 8.5 years now. So that is normal, but it significantly affected my work, my ability to go places. I had a busy schedule planned for 2020 and everything is either on hold or canceled. Just before actually this all happened, I was fortunate enough to participate in an exhibition called Abiding Courage, which was this celebration of the centennial of the 19th Amendment, in which I was shocked to win Best in Show. So the complete momentum of that halted. That show was supposed to go on tour. It was supposed to be in upstate New York right now, actually, and it's done. And then it was supposed to go down to the city and a couple other places. So that is completely on hold. In addition, I was supposed to be at the Abbey Museum this month in May. That's canceled till next year. And there's just more and more stories like that through the whole year. It's just canceled, pushed back. Financially, that's obviously leaving me in the position that I think everyone is in at this moment, where we're just staying home and treading water. But on a positive note, it's given me a lot of time to create, which I think I also needed.
Yeah, I can totally agree to that. I have 2 jobs, and right now I can appreciate that my second job, like the photography right now, is on hold, or it's starting again right now, but it was on hold. So I had times for other projects like the United Art Gallery, what I'm really happy about, that this is growing so much right now. So I have like images coming up every day a lot. So that I think I have images for the next week. So to publish everything every day, the three of them. And somehow it's just different. But now I have a little bit more personal question, and I'm not used to wearing masks right now. It's really just curious, what kind of masks did you use before the pandemic? Like the typical blue one?
I have a case of masks. I'd show you, but they're in the other room.
Mm-hmm.
I always have masks around. So I have actual medical surgical masks that I use.
Okay.
because they were provided to me by my oncologist and I've been using them for years. So when this pandemic hit, I didn't have to go buy anything. I already
Okay.
had a case of masks and a case of gloves and Lysol. I do, however, have some masks that I've made that are cloth masks. I also acquired some vacuum bags, which I've been cutting into filters. So when I run out of surgical masks, that's what I'm going to use.
Yeah. For me, this is super new. I don't feel comfortable wearing masks outside. If it's like 3 hours, I feel like a baby that hurts like here in the ears. So I we just bought some designer masks, just
Mm,
made of cotton. They didn't fit at all. So it's no. I just also ordered two for my company, so I have my logo on there because if I'm going now as a photographer somewhere, I have to wear a mask. Mostly I wear
yeah,
black, so I have no reflection. So I bought a black mask
black.
too. Now. Let's see how this works out. It's like different right now. So
Yeah.
Let's go back to
Consider
your.
yourself fortunate that you don't have glasses. That's always an issue.
Yeah, my
But here's the
girlfriend
trick.
told me.
Always
Yeah,
pinch the nose really tightly and push it to the skin and you won't get too much fog.
yeah. Just my girlfriend had like the sunglasses on, and she had
Mhm.
immediately this problem. So
Yeah.
I
All,
cannot imagine how stupid it must be to have all the time like foggy glasses.
yeah.
How did you become a painter? You told me that you started in school with photography, but
Yeah, I've been a painter my whole life. I started, some would say at birth, others would say in utero. But I had a difficult childhood to say the least, and I often spent my time kind of quietly in the corner with art supplies. Go and be quiet, make something. So I did. So it became really where I put all of my emotions, all of my feelings about the world, everything I couldn't express went into my work, and it continued to be that way. So I started very, very young, but I didn't get into really painting seriously until my early teens, I'd say 12, 13, and I had my first exhibition at 14. Actually, I had a piece that went to Edinburgh at 14. So that was my
wow.
first one. But I did very colorful, bright work then, totally different from what I do now.
But I'm so happy that you do that because the work you do now, I saw it the first time when I wrote you a message on Instagram, and I was really like paralyzed when I was looking to the left to the screen because I see already the first picture, and I really liked it a lot. I like the mixture from the black and white and just the one piece color somewhere, and in the eyes also. And I have some more questions later, but there's one more question coming up because I'm a photographer, and you
Mm-hmm.
told us already that you started with analog photography.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you started analog photography, what kind of photography did you do, and how much did you enjoy the darkroom work?
Actually, the darkroom work was my favorite part, and it's the main reason why I don't do as much photography now, because I have all my equipment, but I don't have the ability to do it. And for me, the photography was all about the darkroom work. Um, I was very good at, setting the camera to the right f-stop and all of that, but where I really felt like it became art for me was in the dark room. It was in the processes that I used to develop, or I like to do alternative things. Even as a teenager, I would experiment with, like in the development process, boiling the water or freezing the water or different things to see what would happen to the film after that. And then I would go and take a negative, blow it up into, and create another negative from the original in larger form, and then use that in the sun to develop all different things that I just started experimenting with. Thankfully, I had a very good teacher in school who was very willing to show me things. She brought in a camera like the one behind you there and let me use that for a while as well. So where I really started was in the very basics, a box with a hole, move up to, the wooden bellows and everything, and going from there. And I really enjoyed the unusual ideas, the usual unusual processes, and just experimenting with that. And then I ended up going to community college for fine arts, where I was told I was not a painter. And I ended up studying photography, and I got an A+ from a professor who said he never gave them. And I transferred to another college and ended up, September 11th happened right when I was starting school in Boston. And I went from being able to support myself, pay for school, everything, literally September 10th, working as a waitress, paying for school, going full-time as a photography student, to September 12th, not possible. There was no tourism, no money coming in. I finished the semester, finished the year in my lease, and had to drop out of school then. So then I started painting, and I brought what I loved about photography, which was that my mind had I'd kind of started thinking in black and white for quite a while. I just processed it that way. Even in the darkroom, let's just say I didn't waste a lot of paper. I kind of just knew how many seconds it needed to be exposed. I had developed this intuition behind it. Sometimes I'd use a test strip, but it was very rare. So I really wanted to bring that with me, that almost Zen-like meditative state that you get into in the darkroom. And I loved the black and white. It's something that I felt deep inside me. So I started painting in black and white. And before that, I'd been painting in color, very bright color, and it didn't have really very much emotion behind it. But my black and white photography was very emotional, and there was a lot of composition and darkness there. So I wanted to bring that to the painting. And I remembered from childhood how being physical with my hands, pushing the paint around, using a brush, all of those things kind of would put me into a meditative trance-like state, and I missed that. So I decided that I would be a painter, because that was kind of where my soul was pulling me, even though I had all of this almost innate skill in photography and loved that as well. My soul was saying, you know what, you need to be a painter. So I went out and bought some canvas and started painting again. And then I just was a painter from then. I've done photography since, but painting has become who I am now.
As said before, I'm happy that you're painting when I look at your images.
Well, it's something I lose myself in it, and that's something that I loved about darkroom work as well, because you could lose hours upon hours and not even notice what time it was or how long it had been, and it just felt like a dance almost, where you put the things in the solution, and the smell, the smell, my ex-husband used to say it was like my perfume, because I would just, I loved it, and all of it felt so good. And then the same thing with painting, that the physicality of it, and watching this piece that did not look very good to begin with suddenly transform into something that looks like a human or a building or a place. And it started to make sense. It was that same satisfaction that I would get when I put a print in the developing liquid. Like, look, coming to life.
I totally can relate to that, because when I'm shooting wet light, I mostly smell, I think, the ether on my skin. It's gotta go into the skin a little bit. And the developer, there's like, what's the name for it? There's, you put it also on the salad. It will come to my mind when I'm not thinking about it. And all like smells like that, but it smells sometimes in the house too, because my darkroom is underneath where we are sitting right now, and I have an own pouring room, because this is really the ether is pretty strong.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. It's like preparing for a fair, for a big one, and I was really tired, and I was really didn't want to go to the darkroom. I had to test the chemicals for, I had a booth there on the fair, and I didn't want to do it. I was just too tired. But as soon as I was down there and turning on the red light and smelling the chemicals, it was like a switch turning on, and I was smiling, and everything was good.
I kept my red light actually, and I installed it as a light in my house because I didn't want to get rid of it. And I still have my enlarger, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I'm going to do something.
What enlarger do you have? I'm just curious.
It's just a 30. It's just a cheap 35 millimeter that I got a long time ago, and it did the job, but it's just the nostalgia of it. And even though the wiring doesn't work, I'd have to completely rewire it. And I think I'm missing one of the lenses now, and I don't even know if I can get bulbs for it. So I decided I'm going to rebuild it into something, but I'm not sure yet.
You're gonna figure it out. So
Not yet. It will come to me.
let's start with your images. I'll just share the screen. So let the viewers know what you think about the image, how you created it, the whole story about it.
Okay, that was one of the first COVID specifically related images that I did. I've been making art about medical related topics and my feelings on being a patient for a while now. And so it was kind of a natural progression into COVID. I'd already been painting paintings with masks. I had already been doing all of that. This one was the first one that I thought was specifically targeted at it. It was right after I'd started self-quarantining, and I really just felt this need to kind of express that anticipatory feeling that I know that the nurses and doctors feel before they start really fighting for people's lives. I've had so many who I wish I remembered all of their names, but doctors and nurses who have meant so much to me. So this image was one that popped into my head, and I kind of looked around and saw these images on the internet of people fighting and nurses and doctors. And I said, you know what? I want to do this moment. So that's what I tried to capture here. I didn't honestly think anything would come of it. I just figured it was going to be another painting to go in my ever-growing storage room. So that was the first one, and I just made it and put it out there, and people responded surprisingly well. I didn't expect them to respond so well. I decided to do certain things in color. It's something I've done off and on for a while with the black and white. It's a deliberate highlight of what is important here, and the blue specifically really jumps out at me, and that was the first color that I knew I wanted to incorporate. I've incorporated it in some of the other COVID work and some of the other non-COVID but cancer-related work that I've done. It's the color that most reminds me of the hospital from a patient perspective, and probably, I would guess, from a healthcare professional perspective as well, because that color is everywhere. It's that cornflower blue, that soft kind of blue. Some places will have almost a purple variation on it, but it's always this soft blue, because I think somewhere a psychologist said that it was soothing. So when I have memories of hospitals, when I even have a little PTSD from some hospital stuff, it's that blue color that sticks in my mind and reminds me of things. That's always what I remember, is that blue. So I knew I absolutely had to make that stand out.
Oh, the title makes much more sense to me when I read the title now. But
Yeah, that's
also the image, I had the feeling when I saw it the first time, it's like if two boxers are in a boxing ring, and this is just a moment before the referee just say start, and they are ready there, and they're just ready to fight. And I had the feeling this was the moment I'm seeing here in the image somehow.
It is because I'm grateful that I don't do a job like that. I really am, because I've seen them do those jobs. I've been intubated on life support for like 2 weeks at a time once, and I've seen the looks in their eyes, and I know that they're going through a really hard time. I have friends who are nurses and nurses aides right now who are telling me, and that moment when you put the mask on and you're getting ready to go, I would imagine it's incredibly terrifying. And you have people's lives in your hands, the responsibility, but you have to psych yourself up and say, okay, I'm going to do this. And that's what I was hoping to show here.
Yeah, I think you mastered that really well. I cannot imagine how this must be. I have no idea. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yep, this one's I Heart or I Love, whichever way you want to put it. I got the title very simply from the sign way in the back where it says Heart New York and it says thank you. Again, I was supposed to be in New York in April and May just for business, and I have a lot of friends there and family there, and I wanted to bring this image in because it was something that I saw, you know, in the street. And you see the signs up everywhere saying thank you to the healthcare workers. And I wanted to bring that blue back again because, like I said, it's like a visceral reaction to the color for me. So I really wanted to bring that back. But I was thinking about how people feel right now and how desperate we all feel. And a lot of people are looking to higher powers. So I wanted to show that as well. And also really wanted the street to be stark and empty and the man to be alone in this, to kind of give that sense that this place that is usually so busy is now so empty. But a lot of it was just a feeling. A lot of my paintings just pop in my mind. I try not to put a lot of intention behind them when I start them. The previous one, Blue, had more intention. This one has quite a bit, but it also just kind of popped in my mind one day and I saw it and I said, you know, I really want to do something where the streets are empty in New York, in a place where they're never empty. And with the signs that were up, it just seemed like the right visual.
I agree 100%. I had a discussion with another photographer in a podcast, in the last podcast, in the German one. And we discussed that it's not easy to make a pandemic landscape image of a city or a cityscape image, so to say. Because if a street is empty, you know, it could be, I don't know, the evening, it could be some time of the day where the street is just empty, you know, it has nothing to do with the pandemic. And with this image, you brought the idea of a pandemic empty street really good to your painting, I think.
Well, I tried to minimize. There was a lot more going on in that scene. There was a lot more other signs going on. There was a lot more movement. There were other people. And I tried to mute all of that out. I got very abstract with the background because I wanted to bring that kind of dark, almost Gotham feel where the shadows could have anything going on in them, but you can't really tell. So that's what at least I hope it kind of brought across, that dark, muddied, deep, and hidden sensation.
Yeah, my focus is to one of the brightest spots, or one bright spot. It is the man like saying thank you to the health workers, and I think that it's because everything else is pretty dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Partially that was about composition. Partially that was compositionally, going back to my photography time, where when I paint in black and white, I always think about my photography professor, the first one I ever had, who was always like, you have to make sure that if you're doing black and white, there has to be a true black and a true white and every tone in between. So that was, it started out as, oh, well, I need to make bring the tonal values up here to balance. And then I said, you know what? He really needs to be almost glowing. He should have real light around him so that your eye goes to him, not just to the sign. So then I started to really bring it up even past what would make sense for that position in that darkness in that spot. And I didn't put too much more thought behind it, just it needed to be brighter. So I did.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Okay, let's jump to the next one. The next one I have to say is not in a United Art Gallery. I said before in the last podcast, there will only be 2 images from every painter or from every artist in the United Art Gallery, and the rest we're gonna show in a podcast or something else. The only thing I can imagine that if the time changes and the pandemic changes and the kind of world we live changes because we have like a post-pandemic kind of status right now, maybe I do a second gallery, like with different images because now it's over or it's different or yeah, we're gonna see. Okay, let's jump to the next one.
Oh, yes. So this one is a portrait of a friend of mine who I've known for over 20 years now, whose name is Brooke Palak Karunananda. She actually lives in Brooklyn, New York now. And I started a series of mask selfie portraits, I've been calling them, where I actually asked people who I knew, mostly people on Facebook who I knew, to send me their mask portraits, their mask selfies, because people were posting them everywhere. And I started to think about it, and this goes back again to my own experiences wearing masks a lot. The eyes are really all you can see. It's the only way that you can express yourself then. You've taken away the nose and the mouth, and the eyes are all you've got. It's really the only indication of a human. Otherwise, it's kind of this foreign form that doesn't really read as a human otherwise. That's why I did the eyes in color and left everything in black and white. I've done over a dozen like this so far. And Brooke, I was speaking to her, and it really struck me because she's living in Brooklyn right now, and it's really difficult right there. It's really the epicenter here in the US, in New York. And she said that it's sirens almost all the time. Only in the past week or so has it kind of quieted down a little bit. There's a lot of breaking and entering happening, including even in the daytime. She said that there was a warning recently that there was a lot of breaking and entering happening in the day, and a lot of crime, and people are going without necessities. It's just a very difficult situation down there right now. So it really struck me, especially with the mask that she's choosing to wear. It was a dark mask. It kind of had a somewhat ominous connotation to it. And it reminded me of the feeling there at this moment, this uncertainty, this danger, this, you don't even feel like you can trust that someone won't try to break into your house in the middle of the day to steal something, a necessity. So that's why I chose this one, and she has amazing eyes as well. So that really lended well to the idea that your eyes are really the only way to communicate to another person right now. It's the only way to tell that there is a human being behind the face in this moment.
Yeah, I think that's the reason I was interested in this podcast because about the stories behind the images. If you just browse through Instagram or somewhere, you just see a beautiful image and beautiful eyes, but with the story in the background or with hearing the story, it's like double as strong as it is already. It's sad, right? But it's a story that has to be heard from my point of view.
Yeah, and it's something that's happening as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw like a documentary about the cooling trucks in New York, and it's really sad. I can't say anything else.
Pretty terrifying right now. And when you see the statistics and notice that the majority of cases and deaths in the US, which is pretty large, you know, country of people, the vast majority are concentrated in a very small area right there in New York City and in Brooklyn and you know, all the boroughs. So it's pretty scary to think about that.
Okay, jump to the next image.
This one is called Reach. This one I painted in the pandemic, obviously during quarantine, but it really kind of ties back to some of the other work I've done before the pandemic. My own feelings being a patient, and I thought about these people who are in the hospital who are dying alone, who are so scared. I remember I was in the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019. I actually spent New Year's in the ICU, intubated on life support. And so when I heard the descriptions of people and what they were going through and that they're dying alone, I remembered how terrifying that was to me. Even the simplest task when you're intubated is terrifying. They have to come and they have to suction the tube or you'll suffocate on your own fluids. And while they're suctioning it, you can't breathe. So you start panicking inside because you can't breathe and you've got your wrists tied down and you know your IV is in your hand or your arm, and all of these tubes are going everywhere, and it's a horrifying experience. And then to also on top of it have all of these symptoms that we keep hearing about in the news, and you know all of the functions shutting down. I thought about what it felt like to be in that position and to want to reach out for someone, for anyone. And when you're in that position, just like I was, because I was immune suppressed at the time that I was intubated, and anyone who came to care for me had to be in full suit, just like they are now. So I know exactly how those people feel. They probably feel even worse than I did because, you know, they know the gravity of it. So I wanted to kind of just express what it felt like to reach out and just need someone to hold your hand or something, and for no one to be there. This was one that I didn't want to put too much meaning behind, but it made sense while I painted it. It all kind of made sense in the moment as I painted it, and I felt it because I've been in that position.
I'm really missing the words right now to comment anything on that, because it's something I have no in the closest way experience something like that, and yeah, very, very strong image.
Well, it's a very hard experience to go through. Even now, as I'm describing it, you know, I'm like, it's a little emotional, so I'm trying to stay calm about it. But it's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life if you're lucky enough to survive it. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, really. Okay, I'd go one more. That's the next one is Four Walls, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep. That one was specifically about being quarantined. I was thinking about what it feels like, and this isn't a new experience for me. Like I've said a lot of times now, I've been when I had my bone marrow transplant. I had a bone marrow stem cell transplant in 2014, and the first month you're in a room that's 10 by 10 and you cannot leave. It's 10 by 10. You can't leave. You can't go outside to get fresh air. You can't open a window. There's filtered air, filtered water, all of it. And people come in wearing full suits. And then I thought, okay, I'm quarantined at home. This is so much better than that. I thought, look at this. I've got all these rooms. I've got, you know, I can go outside there. I can open a window and breathe the air. I can eat things that I want to eat. This is like a vacation. And then I thought, look at all these other people and how they feel about this. So I wanted to kind of go back to how I felt back then and go, okay, it felt like the walls were closing in, really. And I'm looking online at my friends who are all very extroverted, and I can be extroverted, but I'm mostly an introvert. So this is again. This is like vacation. But they're all freaking out. And I thought, okay, how do I express that? And I, years and years ago, I did some work where I warped the backgrounds to express some emotion. And I thought this might actually work for this. I was having a conversation with a friend about it, and it just hit me like in that moment, like, aha, that's what I need to do. So I took a picture of my own living room, which is that. And then I just kind of started working with it and pulling different shapes. And I said, okay, what if the windows just went this way and the couch went that way, and you pull the floor, and how does it feel like when you're stuck in the same room and things just can't change and can't get any better, and you have to make the most of it, but you feel overwhelmed and you get the news on and it's just chattering away and it's never good news. So I just wanted to kind of give that sense of panic and isolation and the walls closing in.
It's like it's sucking her into the room. It's like there's like a vacuum
Yeah,
somewhere in the corner.
just sucks the room in, and she is there like, I'm getting sucked in with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I change to the next one.
This one, well, this one is called Strength, and I am Indigenous American. Like I said, on my mother's side, I'm on my father's side, he's actually an immigrant from Germany, so I have a very unusual perspective in that, because I'm both first generation. I'm both like first generation American on his side, and then I'm First Nation American, Native American, Indigenous on the other, so it's weird. But I belong to a group called Social Distance Powwow on Facebook, which was formed recently by a artist friend of mine, and it's basically so that instead of the powwows that we're missing, we can get together, we can share, we can socialize. And while I was on there one day, I saw a photograph of this woman. Her name is Princess. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but it's Vele. It's Vaye or Vaye. I'm not sure, and I apologize to her if I butchered it. She lives in Wisconsin, and she had this image of herself at work, and it just hit me. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I saw it. I went, whoa. And I immediately messaged her. I said, could I please paint your portrait? Please, could I? And immediately she said yes. And she told me about her background. She said she's a 34-year-old registered nurse. She's been a registered nurse for almost 7 years now. And she also told me that she's very soon in the fall to go back to school for her doctorate in nursing. And this image she had just taken, I think, the day before, and had posted it. So I said, I would love to paint it. And she was good enough to give me the rights to do so. So I did, and I painted it in live stream on Facebook, which I've been doing actually with all of these paintings, and finished it in 2 days and sent it to her, and she shared it on the social group, and it got an incredible amount of hits. So that was at least something good from that. The people there really enjoyed it, seeing, a member of their own community. And I wanted to show what it's like again, and these people, they're so brave, and they're just going in there, and you got all this stuff on, and you're sweating and you're dripping, but you're trying to just say, no, I'm going to be brave. And I thought back to being, a part of the original people, a part of the indigenous nation, and that concept of being a warrior and the strength that comes with that. So that's what I wanted to really paint, was kind of that modern day warrior figure. And so I called it Strength because it takes some momentous strength to do what they're doing.
It's really interesting to hear the story behind it. I'm not talking so much today as the last day because the stories are really breathtaking and tough to breathe in, if it's the right word. But it's very well brought to your canvas. Really beautiful. So there's one more image. It's one of my favorites. I had a hard time to not put it on the United Art Gallery because I liked it so much. But it's pretty sure it's gonna be the thumbnail for the YouTube video here.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was an early one in the series also. I think it was second or third. I did that one after Blue, and I did a couple images, and I thought, I'm expressing how I'm feeling, but these feelings I'm expressing are kind of dark, and people really need just something a little more hopeful. But that's kind of not even where I come from. My work always ends up a little bit dark. I've had a really unusually difficult life, and art is therapy for me. So as a result, things end up a little dark. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do here? And as I was looking at the paintings I'd done and thinking, I said, you know what? I just want to give some sort of hope. And then it click. And I saw myself with my mask, which I've seen a million times. I wear them all the time. And I just saw the words, and I immediately got up, and I went and I got one of my masks because I got plenty of them. I got one that was a little tattered, so I knew I wouldn't need it. And I grabbed a marker and I wrote hope on it, and I put it on my face, and I took my phone and I took a selfie. And I think I was even in like pajamas with messy hair, and I just went click. And I looked at it and I said, yep, that's it. And I went, and that canvas is 24 by 48, and I had already started a different painting on it that had just been half finished sitting there. And I said, that painting's never gonna get done. Took it, put it on my drafting table that I used, primed it in black and let it sit, and then I just went at it, and I started with the eyes like I always do and built out from there. And when I was done, it seemed to be the right sentiment in that moment, at least for me it was. And I wanted it to be a self-portrait. It needed to be a self-portrait because it needed to come from me. And it's still dark, and you can still see the sadness in my eyes, and it's still heavy. But I wanted to give that glimmer.
I'm not sure if you saw my hand moving like that. I just put my hand over the word hope and wanted to see what vibes it gives. But I still think maybe now it's easy to say because I know they're sending hope. But I think your eyes are streaming like hope.
In that moment, it was kind of like this whirlwind, like, aha, I have to do it now. And I took the picture and did it, and I tried to paint it exactly as they were. So maybe I just was having that look at that moment. Often I don't know how a piece is going to come out until it's done. I don't know what it means. I don't know what emotion's going to convey. I just do it. I almost go into a trance-like state. And this was one of those ones where it was just like, all right, I have this idea. I have to do it right now. just going to take this picture. It was one quick selfie, didn't even take multiple shots like I might normally do, and immediately got into it and did it in a surprisingly quick amount of time. I think that took less than 2 hours. And it just was one of those moments where I just did it. I didn't really know what I was doing until I was finished, and it felt right, and I ran with it. I'm holding my finger over it just to see. Oh yeah, I see. I could have probably skipped the word, but I don't know. I went with my gut in the moment.
I don't. No. I think the word is important. And this is really what I really like a lot.
That piece is currently on display in a store window in a downtown center in Massachusetts, where anyone who drives through the town can see it in the window.
Very nice. And there's one more thing. I'm just curious. It's more the technical aspect of your paintings. It said you're using a lot of black and white, but it looks to me, if I look at all your paintings, that you use like warmer colors. Is it like that, or is it just the image I see here?
No, it's acrylic, actually. They're heavy body acrylics with mediums. I like to use Artillery Interactive acrylic, but they're hard to get right now. So the ones that I've used for these are actually the cheapest paint you could probably buy. It's at least student grade. It's what I could find at the store when everybody was buying everything. But it's just acrylic on canvas, and I do have some slow dry medium, but I don't use it that often. And it's water, paintbrush, that's it.
So at the end, I have a question for you. Is there any questions you would like to ask yourself?
I don't. That's the problem, is I thought about that and I was like, I don't even know what I would ask myself. I don't even know. I know why I'm doing this, because I have to, because I need to. It's therapy for me. I'm going to continue to do it. Probably going to make at least 50 more paintings, because that's just how I work. So we'll see how this goes. But otherwise, I don't think I have any questions for myself. I don't know.
No, it's fine. You already answered 2 questions that you asked yourself, so that's pretty good.
There you go.
You see, even if you don't have any questions, you have answers. That's also a great thing.
You don't know the question until you have the answer. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Sounds good. So thanks for being here today and
Thank
telling
you for
us
having me.
Sure. Thanks for telling us all these stories, and I'm looking forward to see the next paintings, and I'm looking on Instagram all the time. I will put all the links down to your social media, website, shop, whatever you have in the description. And to everybody out there, look at the United Art Gallery. I will put also the link in the descriptions. They are coming up every day, 3 or 4 new images, paintings, photographs, analog stuff, visual art. Just check it out, and we'll be back hopefully next week with a new story. Thanks again, Nayana, and have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.